On from page to the screen, and we are lucky to have as our guest Jim Sternberg, producer of the film We Are All in This Together. Beside Jim is Katie Boland, star and director, star times 2 and director. Next to Katie is Paula Brancati, who is a producer on the film, an actor, but not in this particular film, producer. And at the end, we have Michael Boland, who is responsible for the music in the film. We'll get into our discussion in a moment, but first, I would like to acknowledge the lands on which the major production centers of Northern Ontario operate are the traditional territories of the Atikamekw, Anishinaabe, I apologize in advance, the Nipissing First Nation Anishinaabe, the Ojibwe, the Oji-Cree, the Mushkinagook, and the Algonquin peoples. Through the Robinson-Huron Treaty, the Upper Canada Treaty, Treaty 9, and the Robinson-Superior Treaty, we create, share our stories while respecting those who have a historic connection to this region. Thank you. So, we just came out of the screening, which, was this a premiere, the screening of the film, Katie?
It was the Northern Ontario premiere, yes.
Good enough for us, I think, yes.
And for me, yeah.
Excellent. We just came out of the Northern Ontario premiere of We Are All in This Together, and the reception was incredible. And one of the things that struck me, that after the screening and how well it was received, was now those people in the audience are probably going to go out and look for the book. And is that one of the joys, and I present this to our entire row here of guests, is that one of the joys of undertaking a project like that?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I was very lucky that Amy gave me the rights to her book. The woman who wrote We're All in This Together, the novel, is named Amy Jones, and it was a best-selling Canadian novel. So I felt very lucky that she gave me the honor of adapting her words. And what I love is at many film screenings that we've had, fans of the book come. So actually it works in the reverse as well. Like, people come to see the film because they love the book, and I hope that people will buy all of her books, but this book specifically after seeing the film. Yeah.
But that also has to come with a certain amount of trepidation. Translation.
I was not nervous for most people to see the movie. I was nervous for Amy to see the movie. Very nervous. Like, I couldn't eat or sleep the night before. I really cared what she thought about how I adapted her film. And luckily, she's been very kind and has loved attending screenings, and that she's liked it. But her book is 400 pages long, and there's multiple storylines. So I had to be quite brutal and cut a lot out. So the adaptation process, when people ask me what was it like, I say it was very brutal. It was hard.
Yeah, and thank you for stumbling over your words. You did that just to make me look good, because I stumbled over mine. That was very gracious of you. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
You know, I'll throw this to you, Jim, and also Paula. When Katie approached you, assuming she approached you first and said, "This is what I want to do," what's the first step? Do you make the first contact with Amy?
That's Paula.
Katie had already optioned the book, and when I came to it, she sent me her script, and it was one of the best things I'd ever read. Katie is one of my favorite writers. It's true, and you know that's true. And Jim and I have talked a lot about this in terms of producing. I think, you know, it does start with the story, and you're with the project for many years, so it has to be strong on the page to even see a life for it beyond that. The voices were so clear. Katie does such an amazing job playing both these women, and I urge you all to see the movie when you can, if you haven't, because she's unbelievable in it. But on the page, the voices are so clear, and that's also, as an actor who's read many scripts, that's not always the case, and especially when you're reading so many women written with such distinct voices. That shouldn't be so special, but it like blew me away. So it was a very easy yes, and a very easy yes to tell people, don't worry, this girl can write, can produce, can direct, can star in it. because I just knew that she would thrive in that position, which speaks
very
to,
sweet.
you know, like just your love of filmmaking.
Well, Paula and I are also very close and we're really good friends. And I was nervous to ask Paula to produce it because I really wanted her to produce it. And I remember I made a phone call sitting outside my LA apartment, the one place I got reception. And I was like, Paula, you have to do this. Like, I know that you're gonna be sticking with this movie for years. You probably won't make very much money, but I need you to do this with me. I want you to be my partner in this. And she said yes, and that is when the ball really started rolling, and then Jim came on board.
Yeah, I'm a financing producer, so I come in after the fact. But I just want to say, today when we were going to screen it, and I think it's the 6th or 7th time, maybe 8th time that I've seen it, and we talked about, you know, maybe ducking out during the movie to, you know, kind of go and do some work and stuff, and actually didn't leave again. So again, 8 times through, and it's so powerful, and it's just always amazing to see the response from the audience, which is fantastic.
And it's a film that we would not have been able to make without Paula and without Jim. Jim is a financial wizard, so if anyone in the audience has sort of financing questions, he's really the man to ask. Yeah, we're really lucky.
And also Gail Harvey, our lead producer, mom of Michael and Katie and Gail have worked together for many years. So their shorthand as this mother-daughter duo is so exciting. Like, you guys really do have such a special creative relationship.
Yeah, and Michael loves to mediate our fights, so it's perfect. Yeah. but
Have
I'll
we
let
made
you-
it clear that Michael is your brother? Have we done that yet? Okay.
So Michael is my brother. He's a phenomenal rapper, hip hop artist, musician, and he is a composer for me. Yeah.
I'm going to throw this to you, Michael, because you had
Please.
a beautiful answer to a question I presented at the Q&A. But when I was watching the film and I was aware that Michael Boland was doing the music and I heard the rapping, I'm going, well, because I don't know your stuff aside from this, I thought, well, is that him? And I didn't want to ask in case it was a very popular rap tune that I didn't know about. But the music was essential, but you were taking that from what I assume is the vibe of the novel and the vibe of the script. I don't even know if I'm saying that right. But
Well-
that's the only clues you had.
Yes. Well, also luckily my sister is very much aware of like what she wants in terms of all things, and like she laughs because she's like, that's probably hard to work with, but it actually wasn't. It was a lot easier to work with because when people are vague and sort of unsure, it's much harder to tap into what they want, especially if maybe music isn't necessarily a language they speak intimately, like someone like me or my composer partner Nathaniel, who works in the film, do. So Katie was very aware of what she wanted, and it was a lot of fun because it was sort of like making 2 scores, right? Like there's the score that was more of a traditional movie score where it's like, okay, let's find some sort of motif musically that maps to like when stuff's getting kind of crazy or when mom's really mentally ill, and like when that's getting more tense, we can add to it and take away and whatever. And that was a lot of fun. But then also there was like sync licenser, like hip hop score part, which is a lot of fun for me as a hip hop artist. Because my main gig is actually as a rapper at Spark Houston and a concert promoter in Toronto. So, you know, I got to impersonate rappers that I listen to, like 21 Savage. That was a lot of fun because that's usually not necessarily a voice I get to speak to from my own experience as a hip hop artist. So that was a lot of fun too. And like we got to sync a bunch of like my, you know, colleagues and friends' songs in the movie, right? And some of Nathaniel's as well, like Tafari, who did the cover of Waterfalls at the end. Like that's a dear collaborator of Natty's and mine. And, you know, Kateam, we sang a bunch of his songs too. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. So it was kind of like making 2 scores ultimately. But, you know, again, like all the rap stuff, I was over the moon. Like that's my bread and butter. I really loved it for sure.
Every rapper you hear in the film is Michael, just in different voices. Yeah.
Is that right?
It's all him in different voices,
That's
yeah.
what I wondered while listening to it. I was going,
Well, no, not Kateam's song got sank. in
Oh,
one
yeah,
scene.
there's one other
There's one
rapper,
other,
yeah.
but yeah, no, all the other rap songs is me rapping. Yeah.
Yeah. You could have let it go. You could have just said, yeah, all the ones are. I mean, we would've
No, I
believed
love him though. I gotta give him
We
credit
love
where it's
him.
due. He's incredible. He's like one of my favorite artists in the world.
Because I'm not going to call you on it. You know, that's very fascinating about the music and how that developed. But still, I wonder, when you're taking it from a source that does not have a treble clef and notes on it, you know, where does the music lift off the page for you? And maybe that's Katie's question because you kind of instructed it.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can both speak to it. I came in with a very clear idea of what I did not want, and that was like an over-the-top, schmaltzy, Hallmark kind of score. no offense to the Hallmark Network, they can be great. But what I wanted was, like, I wanted it to sound like independent films from the 70s, that there was sparse, you weren't emotional moments, you weren't hit over the head with score underneath. I didn't want to tell the audience what they felt. I did want to increase the anxiety and the just sort of the tempo of the film also with the score. So to me, I knew how I needed it to sound basically when I was shooting it. But then to communicate that to Michael when I don't speak a musical language at all, there was many conversations and so much collaboration with he and his partner, Nathaniel Smith. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And I think, like, Katie's, again, her direction was good, and it made it a lot easier for us. And also, like, as someone who, of course, intimately knows Katie, I was like, oh yeah, no, she would hate this. Like, she wouldn't like this at all. Like, she'd like more something like this. So that made it a lot easier too. And again, just finding that sort of synth motif that sort of carried the film and, like, we added to and took away from in moments of tension and release of tension. That was, like, really, once we had that motif, it became kind of easy after that. Not easy, but it was easier because we knew, like, this would be a theme throughout the film. And, like, sort of it would color the emotionality of the film. And then in terms of hip hop, like, what's great about Katie and I is that we share hip hop as, like, a passion of ours. So I was like, oh yeah, and she's like, make a 21 Savage song. I was like, okay, sick. Like, I'd love to do that. And then I made one, and she was like, oh, that's dope, and we just put it in the movie. You know what I mean? Like, it was a lot of fun. Like, that stuff was a ton of fun.
An amazing part about this film is how close we all are. Like, Paul is one of my best friends. Jim is like family. My mother obviously was heavily involved. Michael is my best friend and my brother. So this film was very special on a personal level for those reasons.
Certainly, yeah, we are all in this together. It does sort of seem to carry through into the crew in the making of the film. And I wonder if that became a mantra on set.
It was height of COVID, pre-vaccine. So you saw, we're all in this together, which was the Canadian slogan for COVID everywhere, to the point that I was like, am I gonna have to change the name of this movie because people are so traumatized by COVID?
Yeah.
But then luckily enough time had passed by now when it's being released, and I couldn't change the name because it was a pretty famous novel. But yes, we were all in, everyone who did this was doing me a favor. So we were all in this together.
So the fact that Amy's novel was so popular and so successful, and you said she was gracious and kind, and clearly she knows who Katie Boland is and your reputation, so it's not surprising that she trusted you with her project. But what is surprising is that her agent trusted you with her project.
Well, we have the same agent, so that was the connection, right?
I was hoping for a more,
Yeah.
like I thought I came up with something brilliant.
No,
but-
he was a tough negotiator, though. I was like, come on, Chris, you work for me too. No, that's how I found the novel, is I went to my literary agent, my book agent, and I said, I'm looking for something to adapt that I can direct and star in. Hopefully would take place in Northern Ontario so that I could see a path to financing it. And he said, I've got one, and you'd have to play twins. And as soon as he said that, I thought, that's so crazy, I have to do it. But yeah, he was very helpful, actually.
This either speaks to my ignorance or to your skill, but it took me a while to realize that you played both parts. And I kept on going, wow, that woman, they could be sisters. I kept thinking it, and then I thought, I can't look at my phone to check. But yeah.
You could have. I wouldn't mind. Thank you. That's a really nice compliment. Thank you. The hair and makeup team was incredible. The characters were very finely drawn in the novel, so that was easy. Paula was also a huge part of, we would talk a lot about how the twins would look, what kind of a wig were we gonna get, what wig could we afford, what could we afford costume-wise. Everything was done on such a shoestring budget. The making of the teeth. Yeah.
But the deciding of the teeth, and ultimately that was such a big, you'd been with the characters for so long, so I think they were living in you for a long time. But then when you're in pre-production, do you find that it's like you're thinking about so much else that then it comes time for day one and you're about to act on camera, but you've had so much time with it that, like, did it just, I'm asking a question now where I'm like, were you feeling nervous, or did you feel like, okay, I've been ready for so long to play these people? Do you know what I mean?
Great question, Paula.
Yeah,
Thank you. Love that one.
Amateur.
I felt
It just led me to another thought.
It's a great thought. No, I felt actually strangely, I have the most experience as an actress and the least experience as a writer, director, producer. I felt the most nervous as an actress and the least prepared. Because during pre-production, I mean, you were there for all of it. There was so many other things to figure out, and it was COVID pre-vaccine, so that was a whole layer of complication. And then I remember like a week or 2 weeks before, I was like, I really, really need to figure these characters out now. But the easiest way for me, and I've said this before and I have no trouble sharing it, the easiest way for me to think of the two characters is Finn, who's the more together twin, was who I was before I got sober, a very avoidant person. Nikki, the rawer twin, sort of you would say trashier twin, was who I was like when I was very newly sober. So there was a lot of vulnerability, a lot of willingness to confront. So for me, I could really easily compartmentalize the two characters through that lens.
So when you read Amy's book, you must have saw that aspect in reading it. To actually have both sides of your character at two different times in your life presented to you on the page, what was that feeling? That must have been shocking on some level.
Yeah, there was certainly so much that was familiar to me in the novel, from mental illness within a family to alcoholism to just how much you can love your family and how much they can turn you into the worst version of yourself, like how family, I really believe, is like an animal unit. So that all really, really spoke. I'm fascinated by families. I want to make movies about families for the rest of my life. So that the family aspect really spoke to me.
Yeah, you really, I think, nailed that completely.
Thanks.
With that. So I'm going to go to you, Jim. You are the financer in all of this, which I don't know the movie industry beyond being a film critic, which means I know nothing about it. Raising the money seems to me the most daunting task in getting a movie off the ground.
It always is. And we're lucky in Canada, we have some very good, strong government sources of financing, starting with Telefilm Canada, which is supported for over 50 years. Now we have the Northern Ontario Heritage Fund, which is a very robust fund, and so again, makes it very attractive. And then we have a tax credit system. So you get to start with a whole bunch that the tax credits are sort of an automatic based on a spend. The others are based on the quality of the work and a mix of the spend. And then it's finding the distribution and having somebody say that they will take it to market. And that's always the challenge. So that's again where Katie comes in, where it's cast, it's what's your track record. Those are the types of things. And then it's knitting it all together, because then you're going to have to get a bank to, you're going to have to convince a bank to lend against this money, which is going to be paid, down the road, long after you need it, or it's later stages of production. In the case of tax credits, they come in 1 year after pretty much 1 year after you've delivered the movie. So that makes it very challenging. And that was doubly so we were one of the first, if not the first film to start shooting once Ontario released that they allowed us to shoot. I think it was August 4th we went to camera.
Yeah.
And I think July 28th was when officially you could start to film again. And it was remarkable, because we had the situation where we've got Telefilm Canada, the government, and them saying to us, we know we have to make this large payment at principal photography, but can we make it after you finish shooting? And that's just a non-starter, because how are you going to convince the bank, oh, by the way, this major source of financing, they're really worried about this whole thing. Will you still lend us the money? So we had to convince a bank. We were lucky in this case, very fortunate in that the distributor also banked with the interim finance with the lender that we were using, so that we could structure their payments far more aggressively than what would normally be the case, which is on delivery. So that worked in our favor, and that helped because Katie's mom, Gail, had a long history with that distributor, as does Katie, but that really helped. So it really took everybody sort of really playing ball and that level of that cohesion and a lot of trust. And then these guys to go out and shoot, and what's remarkable about it is they did it in 16 days.
Wow.
And with all of those hats that Katie was wearing, and to do it in 16 days is just nothing short of phenomenal.
Yeah, I did wonder if, because you played those dual roles, and although the women looked similar, the characters looked similar, they also looked very different. And so I wondered if your shooting schedule doubled because of that. You had to shoot one character first and the other character next?
Well, it couldn't double, unfortunately. So, and also because of COVID regulations and because of our budget, we could not shoot, we were basically shooting 10-hour days. I couldn't do an hour of overtime, and COVID cleaning took up a lot of time on each set, and there was people getting tested and et cetera. Luckily, nobody got COVID. No, so to take this on, I had an incredible first assistant director named Mark Pantzer, and he and my mother and I worked, along with the cinematographer Colin Holt, worked extensively in the scheduling and planning stage to make sure that this was actually a shootable movie in 16 days where I was playing both roles and directing. We once got the change between the twins down to 17 minutes.
Wow.
So that was amazing, but when I was changing between the twins, nothing could happen on set. So that was always when people were asked what was the most stressful, I was like, it was always the change. But what would happen is, yes, we would shoot one twins coverage first, all of it. Nikki always got the short end of the stick because Finn normally had more that I had to cover in the day, right? So I do all my Finn stuff, then change to Nikki. By the time we got to Nikki, who is like the trashier twin, if you haven't seen the film, I got 2 takes normally. Like I had to, each setup I was like, okay, I have to do this in 2 takes or else I'm not gonna get my day. So it was stressful in that sense.
And who would call that? I mean, you're the director, so who's gonna say, we need to do it again, if not you?
So luckily, I had my mom behind the camera as the producer, and Paula was often there watching, and I trusted them both very much. But I would call it. Like, I would have a sense like this was a good take. I would watch it back if I thought it was good. And then normally I would move on. And if I thought I missed something, I would go back and do it once more.
Excellent.
Yeah.
It occurred to me, some people in the audience, maybe most of you in the audience, have not seen the film yet, so I don't want to talk too much about it and give away anything. I actually felt bad that I gave away the fact that you played twins.
I think most people know.
Well, I didn't. I didn't.
I appreciate that,
and
Tom.
it was
Thank
a nice
you.
surprise for
Thank
me.
you.
So. But I want to get back to the novel aspect and taking this book on, someone else's words, someone else's vision, and then somehow making it your own. How do you do that and remain faithful to the original text?
I think you have to make a decision of how faithful you will remain to the original text. And I did not remain completely faithful. And I knew in adapting the novel that I was going to have to make some hard choices, and I was going to have to make some changes that just I felt served the movie creatively more. And then there's a whole other layer of changes that happen when you're actually making the movie for the budget that you have. So it's like, okay, this character has to go, this location has to go. So I think you have to almost divorce yourself from the fact that it's a beloved novel and just hope. It's almost like you beg for forgiveness, don't ask permission. That was the attitude I had in adapting the novel, and luckily Amy really liked it and was on board. But I also wasn't adapting Harry Potter. So if you're adapting a huge piece of IP that is beloved, then you really have to stick close to it. For this, it was a bestseller and it was well known, but I felt like, okay, you can sort of roll the dice here and make it your own.
Yeah. Did you run into any conflict with either Gail or with Paula about what you can keep or what you can change?
Paula?
I mean, I think you're very discerning and you have a very producer mind, which, like, directing and writing doesn't always lend itself to being a great producer, and not everybody should do all of that, but I think Katie's someone who's able to kill darlings if need be, and if it even can come down to, like, we're in the middle of casting and we realize we actually should combine these 2 smaller characters and reduce lines so we're not paying one more day rate for an actor. Like, I'm using that as a small example, but I think that's something that you're very flexible in. So all that stuff I think was very agreeable. Yeah. And you'd made a lot of the hard cuts before we were going. We were really about to roll camera. We were about to go into, like, official prep right as the world was shutting down, but we'd been ready to go. So then we had several months of, like, extended conversations and crew that we love that have come out for us on other projects who were prepared to come out, and still almost all of them came out as their first project out of the gate, really trusted us. We took that very seriously. So I think we also knew that like we'd be able to make these days, and that you would be able to cut things on the fly if need be. And we also had people in our corner who could deliver on this very tight schedule.
I was very lucky to be so supported by Paula and also my mom. My mom and I were very creatively aligned, and she also did me the tremendous favor of letting me make my own movie. She didn't come in as a very experienced director. She's incredibly experienced, an incredible filmmaker, but she didn't come in and push me around. Like, she let me do what I wanted, and that's a gift that was so beautiful, and I'm so lucky that I have her as my mom and as my producer on this. Yeah.
That's lovely. Actually, that is a gift, that freedom. So when Amy comes in, at any point prior to the finished production, did she come in with any ideas, notes, thoughts?
No, I kept her out of it a lot. We met when I was about to adapt the novel, and we had a conversation, and she said, here's what's important to me, can you keep it? And I said yes, and I was able to keep most of it. And now I wish I had included her more. It was difficult during COVID because we couldn't have any visitors on set. Right. But I was when I say like I didn't sleep the night before, I was very nervous about what Amy would think. So I was almost scared to show her. But then, now she's seen it with us a bunch of times, and she's watched it, and now we're very, very good friends. So now I think how silly that was.
Well, that's got to be a huge relief to get her blessing at the end. Maybe it's easier to get the blessing of the author, I don't know, than it is of the fans. How have the fans reacted? Fans of the novel reacted?
So far, very well. A lot of people in Amy's life who have read the book, obviously then would come to see the movie, and they all really liked it and were really kind. I did have one person at the Victoria Film Festival who'd read the book say that there was too much swearing in my film and the editing was too fast. But Amy said she got the same feedback on her book, that there was too much swearing. So in that way, I feel I was faithful. Yeah.
Okay, so what the language does, it is prominent, the language in the film, and there were people that thought, swearing, there's too much swearing in it. The thing is that's the language that Amy used. So, I mean, how can you stray from that? I mean, you're not responsible for other people's morality, are you? Or do you ever even have to consider that? Are you even responsible to the author's morality?
It's such a big question. I think that you're responsible if people like Telefilm give you money to make a film, if someone like Jim Sternberg is on your team and is going to help you make this film and watch all the dollars. And Jim always says he loves hanging out with us because he likes to hang out with artists, and I look at Jim and I think he's an artist just with money. Like, he's so gifted and so talented, and the banks trust him so much. So I felt a lot more responsibility to someone like him. Like, you're giving me this opportunity, I can't screw it up. As far as the swearing goes, that would just be to my taste. Like, I do swear a lot. I like things with a lot of swearing in them. My next film, maybe I would do a few less fucks.
I don't think it was the fucks that were the problem.
Maybe the C word.
Yeah. I'm going to go with that.
Sorry. Yeah.
Jim,
she said something very lovely about you. How do you respond to that?
She's remarkably generous, very, very generous. This is why I love working with this group. It's really so much fun, and it is family in that way. And I just want to say, when Paula was talking about how Katie approaches it as a producer, this is, we're working on the budget for her next film, and it was just such a pleasure to go through the budget with the writer-director who looks at it through the eyes of a producer, which is, okay, we can consolidate this. She's already looking at how we can cut costs, consolidate costs. We don't need that. We can reduce that. So that's going to make it easier when we're going to go out and try and raise the money. So, yeah.
During the Q&A, I made a joke about how, since you're the producer, you're not necessarily great with a mic. That's why you didn't get the questions. I was wrong.
Oh.
Yes.
You speak incredibly well to your artistry, and I think that's a wonderful way of putting your artistry of finances.
Yeah.
So this team, it worked out so well in this case. Will you work? Well, you're going to say yes. We'll work together again. You're not going to say anything else. But so let me rephrase this question as: will you use a source that is already familiar in the market as a novel or a play or something for your next project, or would you prefer to churn up something absolutely original from the deep souls of Katie Boland?
Well, so Jim and I are working on our next film with my mother also. Paula, I'm sure, will be involved in some way, potentially as an actress. My brother will score it. It's not a book, it's someone's life rights. So it's a story that someone told me that I thought was so crazy. I had that same feeling of like, you're gonna play twins. When I heard this story from my friend about her a grandfather who made his family put on a play memorializing his life before he had died that he wrote. None of them were performers. I just thought like this, but again, I approached it from a producerial point of view. I was like, this is a cheap movie to make. This is a few locations, it's a few characters. So Jim and I really talked about it. So I loved the adaptation process. I'm now more interested in just working from my own mind. Yeah.
I do want to say that is an absolutely beautiful idea for a film.
hope so. I
And
hope so.
I think if Robert Altman hadn't died, that's the movie he should. That's
The
script.
vibe, yeah.
Yeah, that's the vibe. Wow. No, I can't wait to see it.
Hope we
So
make
you
it.
said you love working from adaptation. What was it particularly about working from an adaptation that appealed to you?
I wasn't as confident as I am as a screenwriter now then. So I wrote this 4 years ago, probably. And I was less experienced as a screenwriter. I had sold less television shows. I was more junior. So I thought like the structure of this novel lent really well to the 3-act structure of a film. And I just knew I had that spine to really to trust. And I also thought other people would trust me more if I had a best-selling Canadian novel.
Now, those thoughts, do you think they're purely Katie Boland's thoughts, that this is how other people would think? Do you think that there is an aspect of trust and confidence that people have in you that you're not aware of?
Maybe, but I also knew to say something like, I'm writing, directing, and starring in my first feature as twins. Like, a lot of people laughed at me. Like, I was, like, people would laugh, and I was like, okay. So I really have to deliver on some of these promises if I'm going to do something that's so bold for my first film. I do think that I have some trust within the Canadian film community, but I also think people really trust Paula, really trust Jim, specifically the Banks, really trust my mother. So I had a very strong team around me. I could not have done it just, without the team that I had, because they have such phenomenal reputations.
And what about bringing people along with you? I mean, Paula clearly is established as a TV actor and a filmmaker in her own right. She has an amazing short that played before this, and I hope you all get a chance to see it. But like, I noticed people that I knew from my days. Like, I noticed Nicole Stamp playing a bartender, and I noticed other people. Oh, I remember working with you at TVO. So, bringing people along on this journey with you.
Yeah, I mean, Paula and I spoke to this a little bit earlier, but we held auditions the day before the world shut down. And then I thought, I personally hate auditioning. I don't like asking actors to audition for me, and I just offered the roles to my friends and the people that I thought would be right for it. Nicole came through the casting director. The casting director said, "What about Nicole?" I said, "I love Nicole, that would be great." For the role of Gord, who sort of plays the love interest in the film, Adam Butcher did it, and I knew I could only give it to him because we had a lot of guys come in and read, but I really believe him as someone who lives in a small town in Canada and who grew up in a small town in Canada, and that's been their life. Like, there's nothing urbane about him. So I just offered it to him, and he was amazing. I offered Paula a small role, and she said, "No, thank you, I'm busy producing."
I wondered. I kept thinking, why is Paula not in this?
I know.
I remembered, maybe this is too long to go into, when there was a longer draft, there was a flashback component that I don't know if you want to speak to, but there was a flashback component. And we were talking about maybe me being in that. But that's a great example of something that we were like, no, that has to go. We have to shoot this in 16 days.
Yeah.
There can't be flashbacks.
Yeah.
But we were very lucky to have a lot of actors that we love, some that we've mentioned, someone like Jesse Camacho, who I mentioned already, someone like Aidan Devine. We have Madison Chiatow, like come out just for a couple of scenes or a couple of lines in some cases. They're all working on their own other big shows, and they came to do this because they love Katie and they love the script, and they've worked with us. So
And everyone who was involved in this film did me a favor. No one was doing it for the money, I'll tell you that much.
well, and it was like everyone's job right out of COVID, you know?
No.
No, it's a beautiful cast, and the chemistry is really, really so special. Yeah.
Well, and also, both Katie and Paula, I mean, despite their age, they've got a quarter of a century of experience in front of the camera. And so they bring those relationships, but also there's an awareness, a maturity, but just exactly how the filmmaking process works. And you can see that. And I mean, obviously with Katie and her mom, Gail, I mean, Gail is, it's really unfortunate she couldn't be here because she's truly a remarkable woman who's, I always joke and call her the most interesting woman in the world. Any picture you see of Terry Fox, she was pretty much all of hers. On the Looney, that's her. She was embedded with Terry in the band. She sang backup singer on the Crowbar song that was a great hit, Oh What a Feeling, Oh What a Rush. She's just got this, and then she was a photographer. She was a Ward Air flight attendant so that she could work on her photography. And then she got into directing, and I keep saying, how many women directors were there at that time? So this is what Katie and Michael got to grow up kind of at the feet of, and it's really, and it pays because there's a maturity far beyond their years, and that's really a fun, interesting thing to be around.
I think
Thank you,
that
Jim.
also
I love my
resonates-
mom. Yeah,
Go ahead,
she's
say
the
something.
best. Well, no, people often say like, to women like Paula and I now, they'll be like, wow, you're a woman in film. Is it hard? Do you face sexism? And it's like, yes, of course. But who really fought the battle? Women like my mother, when there were no mandates to hire women, when it wasn't trendy to hire a woman, when she would go long stretches without getting a directing job, when she was the only woman hired on a TV show. So my mom is my creative collaborator, or our mom is my creative collaborator, my best friend, but also a huge inspiration, and she really fought the fight for us, you know. We're still fighting, but she really fought.
I mean, all this is interesting to those people who do know this already. Hollywood began with women. Women were the directors. Men didn't direct until it became popular. And then men took over. But originally it was a woman's position to direct films. And I find it fascinating that that is now starting to find its way back. And I think it's incredible. I was going to say that that attitude about women and the strength of women must have also existed in the book. Because the male characters, although, you know, especially the little boy, what a nice kid. And he had white teeth.
His name is Max Winter. He's a very special young performer. Yeah.
Well, and the character was very special, so innocent. I went, don't you damage that kid. He's so nice. Anyway, I'm giving away too much of the plot. But it was the female characters, the women in this film, that really is the strength of the entire film, the entire story, arc and everything. I think you could, they could have mentioned the men and we've not seen them, and I think the film might have been equally as strong.
Yeah, well, there's amazing male characters in Amy's book that I cut because I knew I wanted to make it about these 4 women. And I was like, this is the strongest version. If I'm going to stick to the twins storyline of all the family storylines that are in the book, I want to make it about these 4 women. So there were incredible male characters that I'm sad were not in the movie, but I just we couldn't do it. We couldn't do it for the money or for the days. But yes, that was a choice to make it really female focused.
Well, yeah, and I think maybe I can't speak for Amy. You spoke to her, I haven't, but she must have seen that the heart of her story was that, and then that you were able to find that. I mean, I get is that when you're looking at a book, do you have to find a thread that perhaps maybe is stronger for you as a director than it was for the author when they wrote the book?
Yes, I think so. I think you have to find, like, okay, what is it within this incredible amount of material? Because every book has way more material than you could ever fit into a movie.
Right.
What is it that speaks to me? What is the through line that I'm interested? What part of this story do I want to tell? So that is really what I focused on when I tried to adapt. And also, there's so much beauty in Amy's writing, but in all the interior voices of the characters, that stuff is hard because that's hard to put into a screenplay. You find ways or you try, but it doesn't always translate, and her prose is so beautiful. So, yeah, highly recommend reading her.
This is really a good year for Canadian women and cinema. When you have your film, which a lot of times when I was watching the characters converse, and although the characters are completely different than Sarah Pauli's Women Talking, there are similarities there. And between your film, Sarah Pauli's films, there's quite a few other films that came out where the Canadian films, where the role of women are very prominent. I kind of want to suggest that, is this a uniquely Canadian move that women's voices are becoming more apparent in our storytelling?
Well, I would say, and Paula can speak to this too, the Canadian film industry is unique because it is funded by Telefilm. And it is a Telefilm mandate to tell female stories, to give 50% of the money to women. So I think that the government support and the government mandates have helped push more female-forward films. So I would argue, you could make an argument that it is uniquely Canadian to be telling so many female stories and adapted from female novels, but I'd be curious, Paula's POV.
Yeah, I think that too. I mean, I'm very lucky to have made films with Telefilm previous to this, very early in my producing experience, and to have had people like Christina Jennings be a mentor to me. I was on Degrassi for many years, so Linda Schuyler was my boss. So they're two of the biggest women, in Canadian television who are making global projects. So I felt like that was always very possible to me, but I think Katie and I are also inspired by people like Lena Dunham and Issa Rae, and we're seeing so many multi-hyphenates south of the border who are not asked, which of the 4 things are you going to choose? Mm-hmm. They're really celebrated for doing everything, and so I think now we're going to start seeing even more of that everywhere, and so, I hope it's not just a Canadian thing, I hope it's an everywhere thing, and Katie is my first call when I'm like, I'm thinking of wearing a few hats, what do you think? Like, I think we're really lucky that we have a friendship in a peer who's doing that too at the same time.
Very lucky.
And it's becoming more normal. So I'm excited by women being in Women's Corner and being like, I want to come on your project, produce this with you. I've got my thing cooking over there. Yeah. Our other friends got this thing going. It's a very, very exciting time.
Yeah, and I will say there's a few young actresses in this movie who would be 20, say. They all want to be directors and writers.
Yes.
And I think, right on, sister, like, cool, you should be,
like
and
that.
they all will be.
Yes.
Yeah. So I do feel like now the younger women are more encouraged to have a voice.
And I think we're richer because of it. Thank you so much for your contribution to the art. I'm going to open, please.
Thanks, guys. Thank you for coming. Thanks.
I'm going to open it up to questions from the audience.
And no pressure, but ask anything.
Ask anything. You heard the questions I asked. You have nothing to be ashamed of. So I'd love to hear from you. Has anybody seen the film? Is there anybody here other than me who's seen? You two did.
Paula's parents did.
You two did. So you know all the secrets that I didn't give away. Yeah. Has anybody read the book? Has anybody read
Or does
Amy's
anyone
book?
just have sort of general questions about making a film? Yes.
That gentleman.
Yeah.
No, you don't have to ask to leave the room.
Oh. He's coming out, a nice gentleman. Oh,
we
he's
got a
leaving.
mic.
Okay. Great. Yeah, thank you.
I'm about to embark on my first project, and just listening to what's going on here and the ensemble that you have here. What are the biggest pitfalls that I should be worried about in putting together my first project?
Great. Well, Jim will have some great answers to this. I would say what you're going to need is a lot of courage and a strong stomach, because it's going to look like your project will fall apart if you're lucky 10 times before you go to camera. I thought this movie was going to fall apart. It did fall apart multiple times before we shot it.
The story's too good.
Aw,
Can't fail.
Thanks. Yeah, so I would say one creative pitfall that I would tell people to try not to succumb to is you have to be able to kill your darlings. So if something is just not going to work, if you can't shoot it on the budget, I wish my first film did not have visual effects of a waterfall in it. I wish someone had taken me aside and said, this is going to be really, really hard. Like, this is where you're going to have your nervous breakdown, not during filming, but during the post-production. So I would say kill your darlings and try to make it easy on yourself before you go to shoot. That would be my advice. Jim, what's yours?
Somebody said, who gets their movies made, and it's those who don't give up. And so I think that's that kind of persistence, and that's what I see from my seat all the time, is the producers and the creators coming to me. What's the stage you're at right now?
Well, I've been working on research and putting it all together for the last 5 years.
Right.
And it's interesting listening to you speak and how you had to cut out people, and that's going through my mind as you're talking. Like, I'm going through all the scenes and how I have to bring the story together. And you also mentioned about being on a shoestring budget and keeping it down to 16 days or whatever. I'm looking at a production takes place in the 1920s, so there's a lot of set considerations, and there's different locations, from Sudbury to Springfield, Massachusetts, and it's just.
Well, I wish you luck on it. It
Well,
sounds
thank you.
amazing. Yeah, yeah. It sounds complicated but amazing.
It's
So yeah,
a great story.
yeah.
And it's 100% Canadian, and it's a global interest story, and it originates in Sudbury.
Wow. So you're going to
Sounds
get the
so
Northern
great.
Film Fund for
Yes.
sure. Yeah. I'm looking at Melissa, the funder. Yeah.
Thank you.
Best of luck with it.
Best of luck with it. Yeah. Anybody else? Any question at all? It can be general. It can be anything to any of us.
Where are you going
Yes,
for dinner?
please.
Yeah.
I'm going to get control of this again.
Sorry, Tom. I'm
Please,
bossy.
your question.
Yeah.
And I think he went to the mic because we are on thank you, live stream.
Hello. Where can we watch your film if some of us weren't able to see the screening today?
Yeah, so it's coming out across Canada on October 10th, and there will be a VOD release, I believe, the next week. But if you want to follow me on Instagram, Katie Boland 13, there is so much information about where you can see the film, you'll want to mute me. So, yeah. And that will, yes, yeah, there.
And it's Vortex that's releasing
Yes.
it, so
Vortex.
good shout out to Vortex. yeah.
Yes.
Okay, great. And I also wanted to say that I am an actress, and recently I have felt the insane push to create my own stuff. So I'm just sort of in the beginning stages of that, but listening to your panel today and seeing you guys as a team has been incredibly inspiring. So thank you for this.
Thank you.
All I can say to you is you must do it. You have to do it. It's the best thing I've ever done, is to start creating for myself and to expand and not just be an actress. And actors have so many skills that are not utilized by just being an actor. Like, you would probably also be a great producer. You know how to sell something. You can be the face of something. Like, if all I want to say to you is please move forward. Yeah,
Thank
and
you.
Paul, I think, would say the same.
It'll give you more opportunities as an actor. You might not think it will, but you'll see yourself in ways that other people haven't seen you yet. You can create roles for yourself and for people you admire, and I can't wait to see what you make.
Please send it to us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's nice. Anybody? Sorry, Katie, was there anything you wanted? Do you want to bring anybody up?
Yeah,
I'm making fun of you.
Any other questions from the audience? Yeah.
I'm sorry, that was uncalled for. Anybody else have a question, a remark or comment or anything? We'd love to hear from you. I stopped
Devin.
a little bit short so that we would give it.
Devin's got
Devin
one.
has a question.
I just had a quick question for you related to actually shooting the film in the North. Just if you could speak a little bit to your experience, how it was working in the community, things like that, and just how that went for you.
Yeah, so I love working up north. I've shot like 10 films here as an actress. Ultimately, we were unable to make We're All in This Together up north because of COVID. So we had to shoot it in Hamilton. But my experience working with the northern community has been nothing short of phenomenal. The crews are amazing. It is so much fun. Some of my favorite films I've ever made have been Sudbury, Sault Ste. Marie, North Bay, Thunder Bay. I'm just always thrilled whenever I get a call to work up north because it's such a special and unique community, and I love the mentorship aspect of it. I think it's beautiful that we're watching crews mature, as well as bringing in some of our veterans from across the country. I am really grateful to the Northern Fund. My experiences as an actress here have been like the best, and also I look forward to making a film here. Yeah.
Yeah, people might remember, I think it's called Never Saw It Coming.
Yeah.
Katie was in that film, a great adaptation of a Linwood Barclay novel that was presented here, I think, in 2018. I might have
Yes,
the year wrong.
and
Directed by-
Jim produced it.
Jim
My
Yeah.
mother
produced it.
directed
I came
it.
in late, yes, but yes.
My mother directed it, and Michael has a song in it. So
Your mother directed that?
yes,
I did not know that.
Yes.
I always learn something at these symposiums. That's fantastic. It was a great movie. And
Thanks. I'll definitely let her know. She'd be really happy to
well,
hear that you
Linwood
got that.
Barclay was very pleased with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was great to work with too.
Yeah.
Um,
Great opening scene. Anyway.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
I have a question for everybody, one by one. Sorry to steal your job again, Tom.
But I better be included in those
You're
questions.
included, yeah.
Where'd you get the
I want to ask everybody what was your favorite part of working on the film, and what was the most challenging? Starting with you, Michael.
Well, my favorite part of working on the film was, I still have genuine joy and passion, obviously, for making music. So, like, being able to cook stuff with Natty, especially during that time, because all the studios in the city were closed, and, like, creatively, my stuff was certainly on pause, especially with my sort of burgeoning new business in concert promotions and stuff, right? Like, that was all gone. So a lot of the music industry sort of disappeared. So just to be able to make music again during that time was incredibly fun, because for a lot of us it kind of fell off, especially with COVID and all that. And also, like, again, like, being able to impersonate rappers that I enjoy listening to was a lot of fun, just on, like, a hip-hop nerd level. I was like, cool, like, what would 21 Savage sound like on this beat? Like, I wonder if I can do it. And then I did, and it was actually really fun. The most difficult part for sure is, like, music being its own language. Sometimes it would be hard for Katie to, like, accurately convey, like, she'd be like, it was close, but, like, it's just not there, and, like, I don't know why. And I'd be like, okay. Yes. So it was sort of like this process of, like, I would try to be her translator, like, into it, because I understand her pretty intimately, and, like, I would try to convey that to my partner in this, and we'd be like, okay, I think it's kind of this she's going for. But then eventually, like, look, the score ended up really great, and it was largely due to her direction. You know what I mean? Like, we did a good job, but she knew what she wanted, and when it was yes, like, I was like, yeah, you know what? Like, that is the one for sure. Like, she was dead right. And then we all got in the room together to kind of finish it off, and that's when it really took shape. And it was a blast. It was really fun to work on, It was fantastic, and seeing it all come together as a cohesive, finalized piece is always super inspiring and really cool. Definitely.
Yay, Mikey. You're so proud of you. Okay, now Paula, your favorite part and the most challenging part.
I think my favorite part always is with producing is crewing up. I love crew. I love the anthill component of a film set and how everyone has to operate at a very high level together, cohesively, to really create what we're going to ultimately see. So I like getting creative about that too. Like, I think about someone like Leanne Beck, who I loved and worked in the art department with on a show I do called Slasher. I work on that as an actor. She came in and projection designed this, and that was really exciting, like getting to bring someone from Run Show onto another. Mark Panzer's a longtime friend of ours, first AD extraordinaire, and that's very moving to have people that you admire, that you've grown up with as a child actor, as a teen actor, come out now and work for us as producers. So I'd say that was my favorite part of this, and it always is. And the most challenging was, like, having all those people ready to go and us being faced with the shutdown, and I think truly just being scared of people getting sick, and just to be honest, like, it was really unknown then. Yeah. It was just truly unknown. We didn't know how to, would we have to shift blocking, and how we choreographed the scenes and where people would stand. Like, it was so early days of the pandemic, guys, that I remember, just being up at night and hoping that nobody would be sick. So we were very lucky to also be shooting in the summer. You could be outside a lot. you know, there was the ventilation, but that everyone trusted each other to be as safe as possible in that time. There was sort of like, there's a code of sorts, and, you know, I think that speaks to the crew we hired also.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's my answer.
My answer would be my favorite part was it being finished. And my least favorite part was post-production. That's what was really, and nothing to do with our post-production team. They were amazing, but that's when you're faced with, this is the movie I have. There's a movie in my head, and this is the movie I have. So how do you reconcile the two, and how can you sleep at night, you know? But that would be me. Jim? The high, the low.
Yeah, the high and the low. That's interesting about the post-production because, again, at this point, going through the process, I didn't know Katie so well. We've gotten to know each other a lot more after. Again, it being COVID, I never actually went to set. It didn't make sense. I didn't need to be there. I like for the high, I like the math puzzle, that is the financing of getting, and then it's the people part of getting everybody to actually work together. I really enjoyed that, and giving that comfort and you know, how you're going to help each other. The low for me, the other high, of course, is the relationships and that deepening that goes. Like, again, on the you know, Paula and I only physically met yesterday for the first time. Yeah, we'd been on numerous Zooms and emails, of course, but we sat together on the plane coming here, so that was really cool.
I would fly with you any day, sir.
The low for me was because we kept the Canadian rights open, but you really need it to sort of knit all the financing together, and of course that's where it's going to get the, you know, the hometown crowd. So we had a few distributors who passed, you know, a volume thing. They all liked the film, but it couldn't fit into their slot. And so even though that's not normally part of my mandate, I felt a great responsibility because by now I knew exactly what the film was. And so we really slogged to get something, and I think we're very happy with the home that we found, which is great. So, but I learned a lot in that process because it scared the heck out of me, and now I know what to do, not to do next time. So.
Yeah. And Tom, for you?
There were no low parts.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Certainly the high part was knowing that I was going to meet Katie Boland after all these years. And also, I have to say, Paula, I have been a huge fan on the slasher films. Oh my God, if you've not seen them, I don't care if you like horror movies or not, check out Slasher. It's like Preston Sturges. They use the same cast over. She's died like 4 times in the most incredible ways.
And she's
thank
always
you.
different characters. Like,
Yeah,
she's amazing in the show.
Yeah.
And first season was shot in Sudbury. Just a little fact. Thank you for saying that. And it's very bloody. Just a little
Oh,
warning
really
there.
gory, really gory, and I love it. Okay. Oh, yes, one more question, sir.
I was actually a background cop in the opening scene of Slasher.
Oh, which season? Which season?
It was the very first, when the whole series started.
Well, you're lucky you made it out alive, because
right.
no one survives those. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank you,
Jim,
everybody.
Katie,
Thank you.
Paula, I'm sorry, Michael.
Yeah, that's okay. Thank you
Thank
so
you for
much.
having us.
Yeah.
Please.
And thank you to Cinéfest. This is my favorite Canadian Film Festival. It's so supportive of filmmakers. I really hope to come back, and thank you to the Northern Ontario Heritage Fund at the NOHFC for allowing us to make films up here. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.